My name is Mayowa Quadri, and welcome to Don't Hate the Player, Love the Game, a special film by Versus and E that explores what it means to be a proud football fan in 2024. E are committed to bringing people together and standing against hate in football with their Proud Supporter programme. E believe that whatever football shirt you wear, on the pitch, on the terraces, or on a Sunday morning, there's a way to wear it with pride, belief, and hope. There is no room for hate. We've brought together 4 people helping to build a brighter future for the beautiful game, to find out what their work has taught them about football and what they can teach fans like us. Let's get into it.
My name is Iqra. Some people know me as Coach Iqra, and I am a coach, player, and advocate for Muslim women in sport.
I'm Bobby Nwanze, a freelance sports reporter. I'm the first black leader of the Edinburgh Council.
I'm Aniefiok Ekpoudom, also known as Neef. I'm a writer, author, and journalist from South London.
My name is Matthew Robinson. You may know me as Kamakaze. I'm a full-time footballer, a rapper since I was 12.
I guess the question I want to ask you guys is, what does football fan culture symbolize today?
So people make the comparison of football and religion all the time. And what religion means to someone is community, belonging, and faith, right? That they're the essential pillars of it. If you translate that to a football club, there might be a guy whose whole life revolves around belonging to a supporters group and traveling the length of the country to cheer someone on. Yeah, the faith being that they're going to win, or that they're going to participate in something like big and do something, and it's going to be greater than them. And then the belonging is also part of that. It's in like when you're stood in a crowd and you all sing together, it's comparable to church.
Harmony, yeah.
It's the unison of all these people with one thought, which is to will this team to do something greater than what they're doing right now. I think to understand it, you actually have to be a fan.
For me, I felt like I saw the negative sides of fan culture. At the end of the day, I'm a Muslim woman. I don't like to be around, I don't know, alcohol, for example, or people that maybe are heavily intoxicated, and you know, things that can make people prone to violence and prone to, you know, shouting abuse at you and things like that. And it's really sad, but football has historically been a space that these things are allowed to kind of happen, and it's just, you know, part of the banter and part of the sort of setup that there is. But as I've grown older and as I've sort of spent more time in football, now working in football, I've realised that fan culture is really what you make it in terms of creating your own spaces. Some people aren't able to sort of get to a stadium and watch their team live, but that doesn't mean that you can't have, you know, a community that gets together on a Saturday afternoon and watches their team play, you know, in a space that is just women, for example, or maybe a space that is alcohol free and things like that, you know. So having those environments for me is where fan culture comes out the most.
For me, it's the sense of belonging, but at the same time, routine, structure. It's massive and so important.
One thing that I love about the conversation we're having here is it's this feeling that football is a global language. On the negative side, unfortunately, we're seeing the increase in that language being utilised in the wrong way, whether that's online abuse in stadiums. Have any of you experienced abuse or hate within like your social feeds or directly or in stadiums?
I was at a stadium that I visit regularly, and cheering the same team. The captain's black, you know, and I'm getting racially abused. And my 2 white friends have looked at me and said, did he just say, I think he did? And I went, he did. I'm going to be in places where people don't like me regardless. Even if they even like what I'm saying, they're still not going to like me. And to be in the stadium, having 2 black players score a goal and cheer, and for someone to racially abuse me, I just went quiet. I turned around and smiled at them and said, my name's Bobby, by the way. Enjoy the rest of the game. Because when they see you knowing that you're going to have a great time, regardless of what they say, they're the ones who now have a problem.
There's racism that I've experienced. There's also misogyny that I've experienced. And then obviously the third sort of plane of that being Islamophobic abuse. You know, I'm visibly Muslim, I wear hijab. I've had experiences of me, you know, playing football, like on the pitch, and, you know, people shouting all sorts of abuse and derogatory things. I've had, you know, things online. It's expected, and that's the thing that kind of hurts, I think, a little bit.
We're in a space right now that player abuse is skyrocketing. Is that something that you've experienced throughout your career?
I have had it on numerous occasions. People will look for any reason or any little thing that they can to pick at, especially when it's not to do with football, ironically. They will look at everything else in your personal life, which really and truly is none of their business, but they'll somehow relate it to football.
How does that make you feel?
Not great. You can ask anyone in the world what's it like to get abused. It's not like, as long as you are who you are proudly, no one can take nothing from you anyway. So that's the mindset that I've always tried to have.
One thing that's great about the EE Proud Sports program is there's lots of tools on people doing things within society and how they have helped educate others. And I think one part that is often not spoken about is LGBTQ plus community. What can fans do to support that community within football when football traditionally hasn't been the most safest community for them?
I think a really important thing is to listen. I feel like that's such a big element of it, because you're going to experience the game, and if you're a fan, you're going to have a different experience in the stadium. And watching football, so I think it's important to really hear the experiences of people who are going to the games and understanding how that's going to differ from, say, me going to a game, and how then I can, if there's any behaviours that I'm not even conscious of, to make sure that it's a more accepting atmosphere. Because if we're talking about football being for everybody, everybody should be able to take part if they so wish. So the education part of making sure that that is actually the case, I think, is really important. As we say, football fan culture is changing a lot from what it traditionally was. In that process, I feel like there needs to be like a re-education to make sure that it is a space that is accommodating and open for everybody in that sense.
The moment we're in right now, where there's so much information, there's so much opportunity, like, what can we use this moment to do in terms of combating hate and abuse?
You talk about it is a good start. The more you talk, the more you educate. And I feel like as a white man amongst black people, there is a responsibility for us, British, white, male, the face of the abuser. If you are in a position where you see something happen and you say nothing, you are complicit.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where I'm the minority, whether it be barbershop, music, friendship group, and my peers, my friends who are black or Asian, they would never let me feel that level of uncomfortability or be in a position where I could even be abused, because they would put a stop to it before. So if you see it happening and you don't say anything, you're complicit in it.
Majority of the people do know what's right and what's wrong. You know, we're talking about ignorance. It is ignorance, because at the end of the day, have people that are non-color, of any color, to be like, actually, I've got black friends, or I've got Asian friends. How can I help them? And how can I help myself?
It feels like it's normal now to just hate and abuse players for the sake of it. How important is it for players and fans to unite against abuse? Because both groups face it, both groups love football. How important is it that both are aligned with combating it together?
It's an interesting one, because like, although the supporters and the players are the lifeblood of the sport, they don't hold that much power. They hold the power of their voices, they hold the power of their actions, but ultimately for me, the real change will come when authorities that be, who are in charge, stand behind their programs. When they talk about stuff like Kick It Out, they talk about anti-racism days, X, Y, and Z, but don't back it. And when I say back it, I mean, if it doesn't belong in the game, a player who is a perpetrator of those things doesn't belong in the game. So the ban of 5 games or 10 games isn't sufficient, in my opinion, because you can get the same for a tackle. You can get the same for a bad tackle. For me, the change does have to come from the unification of the players and the fans, but also the backing of, or like I said, the powers that be, the people who really hold the power to say, if we're going to say these things don't belong in our sport, then we need to make sure that they don't at every level possible.
Thinking of moving forward, what are some successful means or events that you've seen within the space that are forward thinking of actually combating online abuse or discrimination or hate?
As you said earlier, people should be able to actively seek out information. I've always felt, comfortable when people come and ask me a question about, my race or my religion or my experiences as a woman. And I feel comfortable to share things with them and, educate them as much as I can. But I understand that for some people, it's not easy to come and ask those questions, and some people are fearful of, wording things wrong. But there is still that desire to seek information. And for me, I think things like the EE Proud Supporters Program is definitely the best opportunity for people to, seek information without feeling like they're putting themselves out on a limb or feeling like they're putting a step wrong.
The people that are actually doing the abusing, like, we rarely hear from them. And I feel like I've seen a few times online now, there was a piece that I read in a newspaper, in a magazine, where a young girl brought her dad, who had been convicted of abusing somebody racially in a stand, and essentially was going through that process of re-education with him. And I think that is really important, because as much as we're talking about the emphasis being on the people who are on the receiving end of the abuse, there's an element of you can't convince somebody else of your humanity. That's on them, and that's an issue that they have to deal with and fix. And seeing that being done inside actual people's homes and inside their actual communities is going to be an actual step in having progress and in starting to eradicate these things.
I can't emphasize enough that obviously the EE support program is there for all the tools that you need.
I need to congratulate all of you for utilizing your platforms to speak today. It's super, super important that we keep having these conversations, that fans understand that they have power to create change, and that hopefully if everyone continues to take these right steps, hate, discrimination will no longer be part of the game that we all grew up loving, right? We love this sport. It means something to us. It makes us smile. See that everyone's smiling now. This is how the conversation of football should be. And, you know, hopefully by having these conversations, by checking out resources like the EE Proud Supporter Program, people can equip themselves to have the right conversations and rid the game of hate. To find out more about EE's Proud Supporter Program and how we can stand together against hate, search EE Proud Supporter.